video, all that good stuff. We're about 5 minutes up from 8 o'clock. So I'm just going to hang out with you for a minute. Let everybody get settled, let everybody come on. Hello! And if you're there on YouTube and they're on the chat, you can say hello if you like. I only see one person that kind of pops in. I think I know who that is, but if you're in the chat, let me know you're there and say hello. Just grab your favorite beverage, get settled, get comfortable. And we're going to start in about 5 minutes, right at 8 o'clock. And we're going to get started with the next chapter to The Hound of the Baskervilles. That is going to be chapter 12. So we'll be going up on to, let's see, it'll be on what streaming service are we not on? We're on several streaming services that catches podcasts, audio of any sort. On Spotify, we're on Podbean at the moment, we're on Facebook Live, everybody on Facebook Live. Welcome. We're on YouTube, obviously, and many other streaming services. I've tried to find as many as I could. I've got 2 streaming services running at the moment, Facebook Live and YouTube, and we're also on Patreon, like I've said before, and service. And generally, Kindling the Hearthfire is a, not monthly, but it's every 6 weeks or so we put out an actual podcast, a seasonal pagan podcast, and it's supported. I've got like 5 cats to keep wrangle here. So if you're interested in helping support the podcast, I'm just going to make this really quick before we get started on the actual reading. Head over to Patreon and check us out on Kindling the Hearthfire. Or if you know Anchor as well, you can also make contributions there. It's kind of how we keep all this stuff going. I don't want to make a big deal over it, but especially during this pandemic, where it helps with costs that come along with podcasts, and you also get access to some exclusive content. Not cats, though. Cats, those are mine. But you get access to exclusive content for as little as $1 a month. And one of those things that is exclusive to Patreons is video versions of the podcast. Everybody can get a hold of the podcast for free, the audio version, but the patrons actually get a hold of a video version of a fairly unedited version of the podcast. And they also I've been trying to get together a behind the scenes kind of look of how I make the podcasts and just how I do research, how I put things together, and how I record things, and kind of give you a glimpse of my creative process. And I've also got several other projects that are only available to my patrons, such as I have several tiers. I have the bread and butter tier, and then I have the cheese and wine. Yeah, I love cheese and wine, and I love bread and butter, so I had to be entertained to see my tiers after them. But the bread, what I mentioned before, but you also get input into a oracle card deck that I'm getting put together, and you get access to the chats that I have about that, and I'm still getting the chats together, so they're coming, but we get to talk about what is going to be in the oracle deck, what they're going to look like. You get access to some of the pictures of the oracle deck and what they're going to look like, and that's for as little as $1 a month. But the next tier up, and I will finish in just a second, and then we'll get on to the story because I see that my time is it up. Um, one quick thing is if you go up to the next tier, which is the cheese and wine tier, it basically is a coupon for when I actually put the Oracle deck out, you will get a discount on that. I haven't quite figured out what the discount is going to be at the moment, but I believe it's going to be somewhere around 25 to 30% off, if not more off, just for helping support the deck and making sure you get a copy of it, um, if you would like to get a copy of it. Okay, so that's all the advertisement I'm going to be putting on here. I think I got one person on the Facebook Live. So we're going to get started with the next chapter to Hound of the Baskervilles and Sherlock Holmes. And this is going to be chapter 12. And it is titled Death on the Moor. For a moment or two, I sat breathless, hardly able to believe my ears. Then my senses and my voice came back in an instant to be lifted from my soul. That cold, incisive, ironical voice could belong to but one man in all the world. "Holmes!" I cried. "Holmes!" "Come out," said he, "and please be careful with the revolver." My eyes upon my astonished features. He was thin and worn, but clear and alert. His keen face bronzed by the sun and roughened by the wind. In his tweed suit and cloth cap, he looked like any other tourist upon the moor, and he had contrived, with that cat-like love of personal cleanliness, which was one of his characteristics, that his chin should be as smooth and his linen as perfect as if he were. "I never was more glad to see anyone in my life," said I, as I wrung him by the hand. "Or more astonished, eh? Well, I must confess to it. The surprise was not all on one side, I assure you. I had no idea that you had found my occasional retreat, still less that you were inside it, until I was within 20 paces from the door. My footprint, I presume? No, Watson. I fear that I could not undertake desire to deceive me. You must change your tobacconist. For when I see the stub of a cigarette marked Bradley Oxford Street, I know that my friend Watson is in the neighborhood. You will see it there beside the path. You threw it down, no doubt, at that supreme moment when you charged into it." "Exactly. I thought as much, and knowing your admirable tenacity, I was convinced that you were sitting in ambush, a weapon within reach, waiting for the tenant to return." "So you actually thought that I was a criminal?" "I did not know who you were, but I was determined to find out." "Excellent, Watson. And how did you localize me? You saw me, perhaps, on the night of the convict hunt, when I was so imprudent as to allow the moon to rise behind me?" "Yes, I saw you then." "And I have no doubt searched all the huts until you came to this one." "No. Your boy has been the old gentleman with the telescope, no doubt. I could not make it out when first I saw the light flashing upon the lens." He rose and peeped into the hut. "Ha! I see that you have been to Combe Tracy, have you?" "Yes." "To see Miss Laura Lyons?" "Exactly." "Well done. Our researches have evidently been running on parallel lines, and when we unite, our results, I expect, shall have a fairly full knowledge of the case. Well, I am glad from my heart that you are here, for indeed the responsibility and the mystery were both becoming too much for my nerves. But how in the name of wonder did you come here?" And what have you been doing? I thought you were in Baker Street, working on that case of blackmailing. That was what I wished you to think. Then you use me, and yet do not trust me. I cried with some bitterness. I think that I have deserved better at your hands, Holmes. My dear fellow, you have been invaluable to me in this as in many other cases, and I beg that you will forgive me if I have seemed to play a trick upon you. In truth, it was partially for your own sake that I did it, and it was my appreciation of the danger which you ran which led me to come down and examine the matter for myself. Had I been with Sir Henry and you, it is confident that my point of view would have been the same as yours, and my presence would have been the same as yours, and my presence would have warned our very formidable opponents to be on their guard, living in the hall, and I remain an unknown factor in the business, ready to throw in all my weight at the critical moment. But why keep me in the dark? For you to know could not have helped us and might possibly have led to my discovery. You would have wished to tell me something, or in your kindness you would have brought me out some comfort or other, and so an unnecessary risk would be run. I brought Cartwright down with me. You remember the little chap at the express office? And he has been after my simple wants, a loaf of bread and a clean collar. What does man want more? He has given me an extra pair of eyes upon a very active pair of feet, and both have been invaluable. Then my reports have all been wasted? My voice trembled as I recalled the pains and the pride with which I had composed them. Holmes took a bundle of papers from his pocket. Here are your reports, my dear fellow, and very well thumbed, I assure you. I made excellent arrangements, and they are only delayed one day diligence, which you have shown over an extraordinary difficult case. I was still rather raw over the deception which had been practiced upon me, but the warmth of Holmes' praise drove my anger from my mind. I felt also in my heart for our purpose that I should not have known that he was upon the moor. What was that? That's better, said he, seeing the shadow rise from my face. And now tell me, it was not difficult for me to guess that it was to see her you had gone, for I am already aware that she is the one person in Combe Tracy who might be of service to us in the matter. In fact, if you had not gone today, it is exceedingly probable that I should have gone tomorrow. And we withdrew into the hut for warmth. There, sitting together in the twilight, I told Holmes of my conversation with the lady. So interested was he that I had to repeat some of it twice before satisfied. This is most important, said he, when I had concluded. It fills up a gap which I had been unable to bridge in this most complex affair. You are aware, perhaps, that a close intimacy exists between me and Stapleton. I did not know of a close intimacy. There can be no doubt about the matter. A powerful weapon into our hands. If I could only use it to detach his wife. His wife? I am giving you some information now in return for all that you have given me. The lady who has passed here as Miss Stapleton is in reality his wife. Good heavens, Holmes! Are you sure of what you say? How could he have permitted Sir Henry to fall in love with her. Sir Henry's falling in love could do no harm to anyone except Sir Henry. He took particular care that Sir Henry did not make love to her, as you have yourself observed. I repeat that the lady is his wife and not his sister. Wow. Exception, because he foresaw that she would be much more useful to him in the character of a free. All my unspoken instincts, my vague in that impassive, colorless man, with his straw hat and his butterfly net, I seemed to see something terrible, a creature of infinite patience and craft, with a smiling face and a murderous heart. It is he, then, who is our enemy. It is he who dogged us in London. So I read the riddle. And the warning, it must have come from her. Exactly. The shape of some monstrous villainy, half seen, half guessed, loomed through the darkness which had girt me so long. But are you sure of this, Holmes? How do you know that the woman is his wife? Because he so far forgot himself as to tell you a true piece of autobiography upon the occasion when he first met you. He was once a schoolmaster in the north of England. Now there is no one more easy to trace than a schoolmaster. There are scholastic agencies. A little investigation showed me that a school had come to grief under atrocious circumstances, and that the man who had owned it, the name was different, had disappeared with his wife. The descriptions agreed. When I learned that the missing man was devoted to entomology, the identification was complete. The darkness was rising, but much was still hidden by shadows. If this woman is in truth wife, where does Mrs. Laura Lyons come in? That is one of the points upon which your own researches have shed a light. Your interview with the lady has cleared the situation very much. I did not know about a projected divorce between herself and her husband. In that case, regarding Stapleton as an unmarried man, she counted no doubt upon becoming his wife. And when she is undeceived, why, then we may find this. It must be our first duty to see her, both of us, tomorrow. Don't you think, Watson, that you are away from your charge rather long? Your place should be at Baskerville Hall. The last red streaks had faded away in the west, and night had settled upon the moor. A few faint stars were gleaming in the violet sky. One last question, Holmes, I said as I rose. Surely there is no need of secrecy between you and me. What is the meaning of it all? What is he after? Holmes' voice sank as he answered. It is murder, Watson. Refined, cold-blooded, deliberate murder. Do not ask me for particulars. My nets are closing upon him, even as his are upon Sir Henry. And with your help, he is already almost at my mercy. There is but one danger which can threaten us. It is that he should strike before we are ready to do so. Another day, 2 at most, and I have my case to complete. But until then, guard your charge as closely as ever a fond mother watched her ailing child. Your mission today has justified itself, and yet I could almost wish that you had not left his side. Hark! A terrible scream, a prolonged yell of horror and anguish, burst out upon the silence of the moor. That frightful cry turned the blood to ice in my veins. "Oh my God," I gasped. "What is it? What does it mean?" Holmes had sprung to his feet, and I saw his dark, athletic outline at the door of the hut, his shoulders stooping, his head thrust forward, his face peering into the darkness. "Hush," he whispered. "Hush." The cry had been loud on account of its vehemence, but it had pealed out from somewhere far off on the shadowy plain. Now it burst upon our ears, nearer, louder, more urgent than before, that he, the man of iron, was shaken to the soul. "Where is it, Watson?" "There, I think." I pointed out into the darkness. "No, there." Again the agonized cry swept through the silent night, louder and much nearer, musical and yet menacing, rising and falling like a low, constant murmur of the sea. "The hound!" cried Holmes. "Come, Watson, come! Great heavens, if we are too late!" He had started running swiftly over the moor, and I had followed at his heels. But now from somewhere among the broken ground immediately in front of us there came one last despairing yell, and then a dull, heavy thud. We halted and listened. Not another sound broke the heavy silence of the windless night. I saw Holmes put his hand to his forehead, like a man distracted. He stamped his feet. "He has beaten us, Watson. We are too late." "No, no, surely not." Fool that I was to hold my hand. "And you, Watson, see what comes of abandoning your charge? But by heaven, if the worst has happened, we'll avenge him." Blindly we ran through the gloom, blundering against boulders, forcing our way through gorse bushes, panting up hills and rushing down slopes, heading always in the direction whence those dreadful sounds had come. At every rise, Holmes looked eagerly round him, but the shadows were thick upon the moor, and nothing moved upon its dreary face. "Can you see anything?" "Nothing. But hark, what is that?" A low moan had fallen upon our ears. There it was again upon our left. On that side a ridge of rocks ended in a sheer cliff, which overlooked a stone-strewn slope. On its jagged face was turned towards it the vague outline hardened into the definite shape. It was a prostrate man, face downward upon the ground, the head doubled under him at a horrible angle, the shoulders rounded, and the body hunched together as if in the act of throwing a somersault. So grotesque was the attitude that I could not for an instant realize that that moan had been passing of his soul. Not a whisper, not a rustle, rose now from the dark figure over which we stooped. Holmes laid his hand upon him and held it against with an exclamation of horror. The gleam of the match which he struck shone upon his clotted fingers and upon the ghastly pool which had widened slowly which turned our hearts sick and faint within us. The body of Sir Henry Baskerville. There was no chance of either of us forgetting that peculiar ruddy tweed suit, the very one which he had worn on the first morning that we had seen him in Baker Street. We caught the one clear glimpse of it, and then the match flickered and went out, even as the hope had gone out of our souls. Through the darkness. "The brute! The brute!" I cried with clenched hand. "Claim the need, Watson. In order to have my case well-rounded and complete, I have thrown away the life of my client. It is the greatest blow which has befallen me in my career. But how could I know? How could I know that he would risk his life alone upon the moor in the face of all my warnings? That we should have heard his screams, my God, those screams, and yet have been unable to save him. Where is this brute of a hound which drove him to his death? It may be lurking among these rocks at this instant, in Stapleton. Where is he? He shall answer for this deed. He shall. I will see to that. Uncle and nephew have been murdered. The one frightened to death by the very sight of a beast which he thought to be supernatural, the other driven to his end in his wild flight to escape from it. Prove the connection between the man and the beast. Save from word, we cannot even swear to the existence of the latter, since Sir Henry has evidently died from the fall. But by heavens, cunning as he is, the fellow shall be in my power before another day is past. Keep seeming appropriate. How's everybody enjoying that? Does it sound okay? I assume you would have told me it sounded difficult. Spoon. Sounds terrible. Okay. We stood with bitter hearts on either side of the mangled body, all our long and weary labors to such a piteous end. We climbed to the top of the rocks over which our poor friend had fallen, and from the summit we gazed out over the shadow. Far away, miles off, in the direction of Grimpen, a single steady yellow light was shining. It could only have come from the lonely abode of the Stapletons. With a bitter curse, I shook my fist at it. Why should we not seize him at once? Our case is not yet complete. The fellow is wary and cunning to the last degree. It is not what we know, but what we can prove. If we make one false move, the villain may escape us yet. What can we do? There will be plenty for us to do tomorrow. Tonight we can only perform the last offices to our poor friend. Together we made our way down the precipitous slope and approached the body, black and clear against the silver stones. The agony of those contorted limbs. Struck me with a spasm of pain and blurred my carry him all the way to the hall. Good heavens, are you mad? He had uttered a cry and bent over the body. Now he was dancing and laughing and wringing hands. Could this be my stern, self-contained friend? These were hidden a beard. It is not the baronet. It is my neighbor. The beard was pointing up to the cold, clear moon. There could be no doubt about the beetling forehead, the sunken animal eyes. It was indeed the same face which had glared upon me in the light of the candle from over the rock, the face of Selden, the criminal. Then, in an instant, it was all clear to me. I remembered how the baronet had told me he had handed his old wardrobe to Barrymore. Barrymore had passed it on in order to help Selden in his escape. Boots, shirt, cap, it was all Sir Henry's. The tragedy was still black enough, but this man had at least deserved death by the laws of his country. I told Holmes how the matter stood, and the clothes have been the poor devil's death. It is clear enough that the hound has been laid on from some article of Sir Henry's. The boot which was abstracted in the hotel, in all probability. And so ran this man down. There is one very singular thing, however. How comes Selden, in the darkness, to know was on his trail? He heard him. To hear a hound upon the moor would not work a hard man like this convict into a paroxysm of terror that he would risk recapture by screaming wildly for help. By his cries, he must have run a long way. The mystery to me is why this hound, presuming that all our conjectures are correct, I presume nothing. Well then, why this hound should be loose tonight? I suppose that it does not always run loose upon the moor. Stapleton would not let it go unless he had reason to think that Sir Henry would be there. My difficulty is the more formidable of the two, for I think we shall very shortly get an explanation of yours, while mine may remain forever a mystery. The question now is, what shall we do with this poor wretch's body? We cannot leave it here to the foxes and the ravens. I suggest that we put it in one of the huts until we can communicate with the police. Exactly. I have no doubt that you and I could carry it so far. Hello, Watson, what's this? It's the man himself. By all that's wondrous and audacious, not a word to show your suspicions, not a word, or my plans crumble to the ground. A figure was approaching us over the moor, and I saw the dull red glow of a cigar. Shape and jaunty walk of the naturalist. He stopped when he saw us, and then came on again. Why, Dr. Watson, that's not you, is it? You are the last man I should have expected to see out on the moor at this time of night. But dear me, what's this? Somebody hurt? Don't tell me that's our friend Sir Henry. He hurried past his breath, and the cigar fell from his fingers. Who's this? He stammered. It is Selden, the man who escaped from Princetown. Stapleton turned a ghastly face upon us, but by supreme effort he had overcome his amazement and his disappointment. He looked sharply from Holmes to me. Dear me, what a very shocking affair. How did he die? He appears to have broken his neck by falling over these rocks. My friend and I were strolling on the moor when we heard a cry. I heard a cry also. That was what brought me out. I was uneasy about Sir Henry. What about Sir Henry in particular? I could not help asking. Because I had suggested that he should come over. When he did not come, I was surprised, and I really became alarmed for his safety when I heard the cries upon the moor. By the way, his eyes darted again from my face to Holmes. Did you hear anything else besides a cry? What do you mean, then? Oh, you know the stories that the peasants tell about a phantom hound, and so on. It is said to be heard at night upon the moor, and I was wondering if there were any evidence of such a sound tonight. We heard nothing of the kind, said I. And what is your theory of this poor fellow's death? I have no doubt that anxiety and exposure have driven him off his head. He has rushed about the moor in a crazy state and eventually fell over here and broke his neck. That seems the most reasonable theory, Mr. Sherlock Holmes. My friend bowed his compliments. You are quick at identification, said he. We have been expecting you in these parts since Dr. Watson came down. You are in time to see a tragedy. Yes, indeed. I have no doubt that my friend's explanation will cover the facts. I will take an unpleasant remembrance back to London with me tomorrow. Oh, you return tomorrow? That is my intention. I hope your visit has cast some light upon those occurrences which have puzzled us. Holmes shrugged his shoulders. One cannot always have the success for which one hopes. An investigator needs facts, and not legends or rumors. It has not been a satisfactory case. My friend spoke in his frankest and most unconcerned manner. Stapleton still looked hard at him. Then he turned to me. I would suggest carrying this poor fellow to my house, but it would give my sister such a fright that I do not feel justified in doing it. I think that if we put something over his face, he will be safe until morning. So it was arranged. Resisting Stapleton's offer of hospitality, Holmes and I set off to Baskerville Hall, leaving the naturalist to return alone. Looking back, we saw the figure moving slowly away over the broad moor, and behind him that one black smudge on the silvered slope which showed where the man was lying who had come to so horribly an end. We are at close grips at last, said Holmes as we walked together across the moor. What a nerve the fellow has! How he pulled himself together and a victim to his plot. I told you in London, Watson, and I tell you now again, that we have never had a foeman more worthy of our steel. And so, I am sorry that he has seen you, and so was I at first. What do you think it will have upon his plans, now that he knows you are here? It may cause him to be more suspicious and more cautious, or it may drive him to desperate measures at once. Like most clever criminals, he may be too confident in his own cleverness, and imagine that he has completely deceived us. Why should we not arrest him at once? My dear Watson, you were born to be a man of action. Your instinct is always to do something energetic. But supposing, for argument's sake, that we had him arrested tonight, what on earth the better off should we be for that? We could prove nothing against him. There's the devilish cunning of it. If he were acting through a human agent, we could get some evidence. But if we were to drag this great dog to the light of day, it would not help us in putting a rope around the neck of its master. Surely we have a case. Not a shadow of one. Only surmise and conjecture. surmise and conjecture. We should be laughed out of court if we came with such a story and such evidence. There is Sir Charles's death, found dead without a mark upon him. You and I know that he died of sheer fright, and we also know what frightened him. But how are we to get 12 stolid jurymen to know it? What signs are there of a hound? Where are the marks of his fangs? Of course we know that a hound does not bite a dead body, and that Sir Charles was dead before ever the brute overtook him. But we have to prove all this, and we are not in a position to do it. Well then, tonight, we are not much better off tonight. Again, there was no direct connection between the hound and the man's death. There is a complete absence of motive. No, my dear fellow, we must reconcile ourselves to the fact that we have no case at present, and that it is worth our while to run any risk in order to establish one. And how do you propose to do so? I have great hopes of what Mrs. Laura Lyons may do for us when the position of affairs is made clear to her. And I have my own plan as well. Sufficient for tomorrow is the evil thereof, but I hope before the day is past to have the upper hand at last. I could know nothing further from him, and he walked, lost in thought, as far as the Baskerville gates. Are you coming up? Yes, I have no reason for further concealment. But one last word, Watson. Say nothing of the hound to Sir Henry. Let him think that Selden's death was as Stapleton would have us believe. He will have a better nerve for the ordeal, which he will have to undergo tomorrow when he is engaged, if I remember your report right, to dine with these people, and so am I. Then you must excuse yourself, and we must go alone. He must go alone. That will be easily arranged. And now, if we are too late for dinner, I think that we are both ready for our supper. That was quite a action-filled chapter, don't you say so? Well, I'm glad to hear that Sir Henry isn't the one that died. Oh, I'm sorry. You know what? My cat's complaining about me putting my Kindle on top of them. But thank you, everyone, for recording. I hope everyone has a good night. I hope to see everyone tomorrow for Tryst Tuesday, where I continue on with Persuasion. Same time, it'll streaming program. Video program on YouTube, so we'll see how that goes, see if the connection is a little bit better with the streaming service. So see you tomorrow if you are wanting to come in tomorrow. I hope everyone has a good evening, and thank you for popping in, and I hope everybody continues to stay well.